One of the problems with almost exclusively building 1 in 350 scale battleships is that because of the time and effort that goes into building them, I don't do a lot of experimenting. This is one of the reasons why I've started building smaller models between my larger builds. It's an opportunity for me to experiment. On this build, one of the best areas for me to experiment in is with weathering. So that is what I'm going to be doing in this video. I'm going to be weathering this boat in a different way than I would usually weather. If it doesn't work out, I'll just have to strip it and start again, but that's fine. Although I am going to be mixing up the weathering process for this boat, the first step is exactly the same as always. That is, I'm going to seal the boat with a clear glass varnish. This is Mr. Color GX112, it is a lacquer varnish. It being a lacquer-based varnish means I'll be able to apply both acrylic and enamel-based washes on top of it without worrying about damaging the underlying paint. In addition to protecting the color coat below the varnish from being dissolved by the washes that will be applied, it will also help the washes run towards the detail and prevent the wash from being absorbed into the matte paint. If you apply washes to a matte surface, it will stain it and you'll not be able to remove that stained effect. So if it is an effect that you want, great, but if you want to be able to remove it, you need to first cover the paint with a glass varnish. Normally at this point I would start with rust streaks, but in this case, because the whole boat would spend a lot of time completely submerged, I want there to be a general sort of rusty effect over the entire boat. To try and achieve that effect, the first thing that I'm going to do is cover the entire boat with a layer of brown panel line. Here I am not being precise at all. I am just brushing it on absolutely everywhere. It does not matter that I'm putting on a lot of panel line, and it does not matter where the panel line runs. All I need to do is get a good layer onto the boat and leave it to dry for 5 to 10 minutes. To remove the excess brown panel line, I dip a brush in mineral turpentine and then do up and down streaks. I am avoiding swiping horizontally because if I were to do that, it would remove a whole lot more of the panel line and the effect would be dulled quite significantly. The reality is that after subsequent layers of weathering and then the final matte varnish, whatever you see at this stage will be significantly muted. There will also be other layers of effects that I'll be able to introduce some horizontal detail into the hull. But for now, I just want to keep it in this up-down direction. After the turpentine that I used to remove the brown panel line has dried, then move on to the next layer of effects. This is an acrylic wash. I can use an acrylic wash on top of the enamel brown panel line and the lacquer clear glass varnish without having to worry about protecting them with another layer of varnish. This wash is Revell Model Wash for grey and dark vehicles, number 76.516. For this wash, I put it on a lot more precisely than I did with the brown panel line. I start by brushing it on vertically, also trying to impart these vertical streaks and bands across the length of the hull. The effect that I'm going for here is for there to be a general sort of rusty effect that's subtle across the entirety of the hull, but not really very concentrated in any position, with the darker grey wash being a sort of discoloration on the hull from the boat being in the ocean for extended periods of time. After letting the initial streaks with the grey wash dry, I wet a brush with water and use that to continue streaking those grey lines. Since this is just water, it's not going to remove the brown panel line below it, and it's not going to damage the lacquer clear coat below that. After giving the water some time to evaporate off of the model, I seal the whole model with another coat of clear glass varnish. That's because I want to go back to enamel-based washes, and I don't want to remove the brown panel line that I've already applied. The first of the enamel effects that I'm going to apply are the rust streaks. Being a submarine, I don't think there would be many rust streaks on a boat like this because it spends so much of its time submerged. I'd imagine there'd be more patches of rust rather than streaks of rust. But I will put some on the conning tower and I will put some on the hull, even below the waterline. The thinking is that these boats would spend some of their time in dry dock, and while in dry dock, water would drain out of the hull and that would cause rust streaks below the waterline. Whether or not that's a realistic effect, I don't know, so if you have a thought on it, feel free to leave a comment. The wash that I'm using to create the rust streaks is AK Interactive Rust Streaks, that's number AK013. Moving on to the salt streaks. Here I follow a similar process to the rust streaks, although I'm going to put on a lot more dots of this white paint for the salt streaks. This paint is AK Interactive Salt Streaks for Ships, AK306. For this model, the intention is not to really create salt streaks all over the place, but to rather just have some discoloration. Earlier on, I used a dark grey wash to discolor areas of the ship to make it a little bit darker. Here I'm doing the opposite, discoloring it to make it a little bit lighter. Maybe that is because of a salt buildup, maybe it's because of just some general discoloration from the boat being in the ocean, I don't know, but I'm just trying to give the hull a bit more character. After applying the dots, I leave them to dry for a few minutes before I start blending them in. To blend in the dots, I once again dip a brush in mineral turpentine, but this time I mostly dry off the brush. If the brush is too wet, it's going to completely remove these small dots. With the brush ready, I once again swipe up and down across the model, blending in these dots. The effect from these rust and salt streaks is going to be quite subtle, but that suits me because I do generally like a lightly weathered model. I don't want to overdo it. The whole model is then sprayed with another layer of gloss varnish to seal in the rust and salt streaks, because the next layer of weathering is going to be black panel line. This black panel line has been diluted 1 part panel line to 2 parts thinner. With this panel line, I want to try and do 2 things. The first is to just bring out the details, as you normally would with panel line. The second is to allow it to pool in some areas to try and connect these vertical lines of weatherings that I had previously created to introduce a horizontal element. Whether or not this is going to work, I don't know. This black panel line is also going to be really important for enhancing the deck. It's quite a dark brown, so putting this black between the planks on the deck is going to really make them pop out, make that detail easy to see. After letting all the solvent in the black panel line evaporate off, the entire model is sealed in with a layer of matte varnish. This is Tamiya XF86. Once that layer of matte varnish is dried, the final weathering step can begin. This is a white weathering powder, just using it for highlighting. I use the soft end of the brush. The hard end of this brush is far too stiff and it will create quite horrible marks on the model. But the soft brush on this applicator is perfect. It will pick up a very little bit of the white weathering powder and nicely deposit it on the raised edges. I think this is a very easy technique to use. It's kind of like dry brushing, except the paint's already been pre-dried for you, so it makes it a lot quicker and easier to do. With the application of the white weathering powder, the weathering process is complete, and I'm quite happy with it. I think those first layers of brown and then grey wash have really done a good job to give the hull a bit more character. It certainly has a lot more character than the hulls on any of my other models. Although I am quite happy with the weathering, there's just one small problem. Unfortunately, with all the layers of effects that have been applied during this process, the wandering line and the white areas of the camouflage has become all but invisible. It is still technically there, you have to get very close and you can just about see it, but practically it's invisible. I did try to recreate the wandering line with the light grey pigment pen, but that pigment pen's color is just too light, it doesn't show up. I did try and find a darker pigment pen, but they don't seem to exist. At 0.005 millimeters, the options are very limited. So to close the loop on the foreshadowing at the start of this video, I have decided that I do not like this camouflage pattern, does not work for a model of this scale, so I will strip it off and repaint the boat in a different camouflage scheme. In the next video, you'll find out what that camouflage scheme will be. If you don't want to wait for the scheduled release of videos and want to watch them when they're uploaded, consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button below. If you would like to support the channel, like and subscribe. And as always, questions are welcome in the comments. Thank you for watching. Cheers.